Hi there. Today we're going to talk about text in Blender 5.2. We'll work over some of the items in the properties window and also some of the menu items for text. We'll give you a good basic idea of how to work with the text objects in Blender. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ron Proctor. I've been working with Blender for 20 years. I've been making immersive content for planetariums, museums, and other organizations. And I also work as a consultant in this space. So if you're interested in training for your team or for your organization in Blender, that's something I can help you with. And also, Blender is a great team building item as well. So if you'd like to help your team kind of come together, learn some cool new skills, that's something I can come and help you with also. If you're interested in any of those services, check me out on LinkedIn by clicking, or excuse me, by visiting linkedin.com/in/proctorcreative or simply scanning the QR. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So here in Blender, we are going to add a text object. So we'll click Add and Text. There's our text. And the first thing you want to do with your text is make it say what you want it to say, which is to edit the text. So we'll change from object mode to edit mode. There we are. Now I can edit the text. I can tap Tab to go between object and edit mode, or I can do that up here. Get rid of that rotation gizmo. So there's our text. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm going to hide myself now. On the right-hand side of the screen, we see the text properties window. That's this little green A. If you don't see that green A, make sure your text object is selected. Click on the little A, and then you're here. We're going to go from the top to the bottom for the most part. Resolution Preview U is going to control how resolute each glyph in your text object is. And what I mean by that is you'll have more or less vertices as defined by the font. So this is typically you'll run into a point of diminishing returns around 12. But you could set this up all the way to 64 if you have a very complex font and you want really high resolution. That will come at the cost of computation, so just be aware of that if you have a really complex font or lots of words. Render U is going to follow Preview U as long as it is set to 0. However, if you want a preview that's lower and a render that's higher, that's something you could do. Fast editing, let's check that out by checking it. And we don't see anything at first, but if we go to edit mode, we see that the text is no longer filled. And this is to save computation. It's just showing you the wireframe there. I'm going to turn that back off. Fill mode we'll skip for now. And Fill Solver is one of those new things that was added to make text a little bit better in Blender. So this new solver is better at figuring out the shape of the text and making polygons to fit that shape. The fill rule is related to this, and these are things that you can change and play around with to get the results you want, especially if you're looking to get a resulting mesh object out of your text. Texture space is something I usually don't mess with. I just leave that on auto. So we'll skip that for now. Geometry offset is going to offset the outline of your text according to the font definition. So 0 is the default, and that has it lined up right with the font definition. Extrude will extrude, make your text 3D. And we can bevel that. We can add a little style to the edge of that text. So I'm going to zoom in here and let's add a little bevel. We can see what that does. So you see it kind of made it fatter, which is why you might actually want to pull your offset back. But be careful because you can get some ugly little artifacts like this here. The bevel doesn't have to just be round. That looks kind of like a marshmallow. You can also use a profile, or you can also use a curve object, although that's beyond our scope for this lesson today. In the profile, your default is just the straight line, but that curve can be edited. You can click and drag on that to change the shape of the bevel. I kind of like that swoopy look there. At this point, let's roll back up and look at that fill mode again. So right now it says both. Let's change it to none and see what happened. All we have is the bevel and the extrusion. Let's change that to back, which only fills the back face of the text. Change it to front, it only fills the front face of the text. Maybe you're going to make a cookie cutter or something. I'll switch it back to both because I think that will look better when we end up rotating our text. Okay, let's move on down. Font. We want to change our font sometimes. So, in fact, a lot of the times we want to change our font. I'm going to take our bevel depth down to 0, and we'll reduce our extrude just a little bit so we can talk about fonts in a clean way here. Right now, it's on what we call B font regular, and this is your typical regular old Blender basic font, and it looks fine, although sometimes you want something else. So the way you get something else is you click on this little folder here. This will dump you into your fonts directory for your operating system. I'm using Ubuntu Linux, which gives me user share fonts. This might be different for you if you're in Windows or Mac. So I'm going to check in here. I'm going to look for a font. That one looks nice. Open that. And now I have a new font. What about this bold, italic, bold and italic? We can also define those here. Click, go here, find the bold version of the font, and assign it there. So we have our regular and our bold. But how do I make it bold? Well, we need to do that in edit mode. Let's select some text, and while you're in edit mode, you'll notice that these appear over here. So you can bold by clicking here, toggle that on and off. Likewise, this text menu appears, and you also have the option to toggle here. So there's a couple of different ways to do the same thing. If I was to change that from bold to italic, it goes to the default font because that's what I have defined over here. It's still in the default font. Let's fix that. I can click. I can go here, here, find the italic version, open it, and I might need to, oh, bold was selected. It was bold and italic, and that's why it was doing that. So let's be completionists here, and we'll finish that out by defining the bold and italic state. That would be this bold italic here. There we go. Okay, got it back to normal. So that's how to deal with those. You might also want to change the font to something that you download. Let's talk about how to do that for a moment. Over here in Google Fonts, fonts.google.com, which is a great place to look for fonts that you can use. You can find something that speaks to you, download it, and that is what I did. I went and downloaded a font. Let me get that loaded up here so you can see. Oops, I got to switch my view so you can see as well. So right next to my blend file, here's the font that I downloaded. That came as a zip. I unzipped it, and now I have this folder here. double click that, and if I double click that, I get a preview of my font. In my system, I could go ahead and install that and then find out where it is in Blender, or I can just leave it where it's at, or even better yet, make sure it tracks and stays with the blend file, and then that font will be available. As long as it stays with the blend file, the font will always be available to the Blender system when you're rendering, which is really important. Let's go back to Blender and find that font. I'm going to get rid of these ones that I'm not using. Click the folder, and we're going to go to the desktop. That was in demos. Here's the font. There we go. Subscribe. Okay. Transform now. Transform is pretty straightforward. Size makes it bigger or smaller. Shear kind of wiggles it back and forth, and that's kind of fun. Why don't we animate that? So let's take and put our position back to 1 on our timeline. Up here on shear, I'm going to pull that over to one side. I'm going to float my mouse over this value. Tap the I key on my keyboard, I for insert key. You see that turns yellow. That means there's a keyframe there. Forward on the timeline. Move this over here. I could either tap I or I can click the diamond. That also inserts a key. That's another way to do it. Move the timeline, change the value, insert a keyframe. Move the timeline, change the value, insert a keyframe, and we'll let it settle back to 0. Let's see how that looked. So that's pretty fun. I imagine you could have that text scoot in and then stop and then do a little wiggle. Would be kind of fun for your motion graphics needs. Okay, so we have subscribe figured out. We have our text animation figured out. Remember that you can animate anything that you see this little dot next to it. That means it's animatable. Underline position, what the heck is that? Let's go back to edit mode and we'll underline some text. We just need to be in edit mode, select the text you want underlined, and click underline right here. Now, for your underline position, you can bring that up or down. Maybe it's a strike through, maybe it's an overline. Maybe it's a really thick underline. And you can make that whatever you'd like. We also have small caps. So let's make this into small caps. How would we do that? Well, there's a little button for that as well here. Let's get rid of the underline and turn on small caps. And with small caps, we can change the relative scale. So 1 would be the same as the regular capital letters, but maybe 0.5 makes it a little bit smaller. We'll turn off small caps. Now we're back to normal. Paragraph alignment. This is important for, especially for motion graphics, if you want this to spin a certain way. We're going to change from left to center. Now that it's centered, we might even change from top baseline, which is the baseline of the top line of the text, to middle. And now when I rotate this, it rotates about the center of the text instead of the left edge. Character spacing, we can increase or decrease that. It's also a fun one to animate. So let's actually go ahead and do that. Animate character spacing. We'll just drag that out. Insert a keyframe. Let's see our animation now. Word spacing. Well, we need another word, don't we? So our word spacing, let me get this to where it's not spreading out. Word spacing is here, and this will change the width of your so-called white space or space between words. So whenever you hit the space bar, you enter one of those. 1 is the default. Line spacing. Now we have 2 lines. So line spacing is going to change the distance between the 2 lines. And looks like the default is 1, and that looked a little bit too far out for me, so I'm going to bring that in. Offset. Offsets the text from the center point, so you can really fine-tune where that is rotating. So maybe I wanted that to really rotate about the R and subscribe. That's fine. We can do that. Text boxes is a little more advanced. We're going to skip that for now. And then our final thing is animation, which is just showing you the animation data for the text object. And let's take a look at those curves for a minute. If I switch this to a graph editor, tap the home key, oops, we can see the animation graph for the text objects. There's our wiggle happening and our expansion happening. If I just screwed up and I want to reset my animation, we could just get rid of it right here by clicking the X. Goodbye. No more animation. Control Z to get back to that. Finally, let's earn a degree. You've been good students. It's time for you to earn your degree. Let's add the degree by going to the text menu. We can have lots of different options here. We have, and this is only, I should mention, this is only available when you're in edit mode on the text object. So we have to uppercase, to lowercase. You can change your whatever is selected, uppercase to lowercase. You can insert Unicode if you know what the Unicode code is. You can put that in there and it will give you that font or that character if it's available to the font. Special characters are also baked in, so we can add our degree symbol right here. There's our degree. Cute, huh? We can also add other special characters like a bullet, like this little circle. We'll put another one on the other end. Oh, that's cute. And let's make this e squared for no good reason. That's fun. Okay. So that means tell a friend. Anyway, there's a few other things in here. You've got kerning, which is going to change the distance between characters. You can do that on a very individual basis. You've also got your toggles for your bold, italic, underline, and small caps as well. So that is about it for your text basics in Blender. I hope you enjoyed watching. And remember, you can reach out to me on proctorcreative.com or on LinkedIn with the link at the start of the video. And I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a good time blending. And thank you very much.